Hey there, rulers, DMO73 here, bringing you a feature match showdown between myself and my Peace Corps Lucie versus Azure and their take on Reflect and Refrain. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Ruler School is brought to you by Odyssey Games, where you can go to pre-order upcoming Force of Will sets, ccgprime.com for singles and supplies, cardodoko.com for those rulers in the international market looking for product, the Ruler School Circuit Series now taking orders on our Q3 2024 circuit kits, and our guest lecturer members, Fight Ramen. Class is in session. So as we get started here, just a reminder that Battle of the Sacred Ruins is just about to come out, so you can go ahead and go in the link in the description to get your pre-orders in through Odyssey Games if you haven't already, and we can jump in. So it took Paul quite a bit to try to get us a good recording of Lucie, so I am now also finally getting my chance to show you my take on Lucie, which I call Peace Corps Lucie, because we're building stuff. We're building institutes, we're building trains, and we're building pyramids. Just these are essentially, kind of jokes about how we're going to pump up the elemental spirits to be able to push through for lethal. I'm also a little bit more aggressive than Paul is in my build. So right off the top here, going against Reflect Refrain, we're going to see a pitch to dig with the Darkness Spirit. I try to set up to be able to do Judgment on like turn 3 or turn 4 pretty consistently with this build to get in a little bit more aggressive, understanding that it might take me 1 or 2 turns to kill you, but I get flipped a lot faster. Azure dropping the Sword of Progression here at the end of the turn to be able to get the other swords online. Sword is not a huge issue for Lucie just because a lot of the deck's ability is like activate abilities, so it kind of gets to dodge cancels a little bit, especially thanks to test tubes, which is helpful. Change the World coming down here, Calling Stone, getting the magic counter kind of set up here. Something like Magical Rabbit would be pretty good against Peace Corps Lucie, although I do have to contend with dealing with the Muse Spirit. Muse Spirit dig there, getting to grab us another spirit. To continue the cycle up here, we're probably going to see a cheat in with test tubes at the end of turn. Down comes Darkness Spirit. That's going to get to go grab us. Probably, Water Spirit is the one that makes the most sense here, because if I can get that set up, then I can start keeping these Change the Worlds off the board, which is very nice. Nothing to destroy there to be able to set up for Alchemic. Taking a little bit of a risk here, potentially, to try to get that orb off the field and set up some of the helpful engines here. We're going to go for a Falchion Shooting Star. You saw this with Paul's list as well. It is a very good card for Lucie. Being able to set up protection or pump or the ability to as well have another discard outlet to be able to get more elementals to graveyard to then be able to dig back is just very, very good for this deck in general. So Falchion coming down here. Gonna try to get that Change the World back to hand, wondering if we're gonna see a cancel come up. If it does, we're kind of fine with that. Again, we still have 1 will, we still have test tubes to be able to activate, and it burns some resources out of Azure's hand. But if it does get to resolve, then that feels great for us. Does successfully get to resolve and put the Change the World back in hand, get to draw a card into hand, very, very nice. Pitch to dig. Sending another Darkness Spirit to grab another Darkness Spirit. So we've seen all 4 of them. We need to see the other colors to be able to flip here, which is the most important part. So you get pass for turn there. As you're thinking about whether or not we want to do anything before recovery here. Draw power is going to be a really relevant piece here for this deck. Just having access to different cards. You also have to recognize that, I will have access to Mirror and he will not. Paying to try to go for a first moon, Excalibur Cassius. We're going to let that happen. We're going to see what those cards that come down here. Electra, Spirit of Storms, and a Fairer Spell. The Fairer Spell is potentially pretty helpful. The Spirit of Storms is certainly something you want to see in the deck because it's helpful with the Perseus Big Show. And the Electra is just nice to know that it's there to be able to try to go for it. So Spirit of Storms, though, thankfully being a good way when it's hit off Excalibur Cassius, is it's a really good way to use for solarization of Shiva. Now, that's obviously an inherent risk because, Lucie's playing Elemental Spirits, which means it's probably playing a lot of Spirit of the Mirage Ruins. So you just have to watch out for that. But sometimes even just the putting it back is enough. Calling Stone with Reflect, getting that Change the World back out there. We say, yeah, that's fine. Do not matter. That's going to get the resolve. And then we're probably just going to leave up Will here on Azure's side. No real need to get too aggressive. End of the turn, we're going to try to use test tubes. There's our water spirit, synthetic spirit getting to come in here. This is going to start being able to give us some setup, using that to grab light spirit. You want to be able to start tucking cards into the item area. But, you know, the darkness guy needs something to be able to target. The water spirit needs something to target. Light is honestly the best because it's just gain 6. So many cards in hand here, kind of gets us back on track. We're going to use the stone to put white back in. Get to swing in for 7 with Falchion. Leaving open a whole bunch of will here, whole bunch of cards. We're going to pitch another Muse Spirit. Going to grab another white spirit, very helpful there. At that point in time, we're going to pass. Based on the potential, you know, number of cards, the other thing that's nice about Falchion is that if you have a certain number of cards in hand, you can just use him to finish the game off, which can be very, very helpful. You know, you can start with something like giving him barrier and then go from there. It works really well with Lucie when she flips as well, to be able to like reanimate and dig you even more cards just because of the elemental spirit searches effect, which is nice. We're going to see a rogue spectator cast to Memory of Worlds to contract during Azure's turn. We say that is fine. This is before recovery. We're going to let that Recorder of Worlds get out there. I do not mind it at all. Move to recovery. Change the World is back once again. Do have a way to get to 3 counters. So there is a world here where with the Magical Rabbit, while you're at 2 counters, you could like cast it for 2 and then gain the 3rd counter so that it can hit for a heavier amount, which might be relevant. End of turn, we're going to try to flash in Light Spirit. Light Spirit's going to get us to search. We're going to get to discard and dig. Hit Fire Spirit. Get to use Alchemic to go ahead and put that Change the World back in hand. It's going to add a 3rd counter and then go back to hand during end phase. Still a full grip of cards. Now that I've used Alchemic, I imagine we might see Azure use Reflect's ability to get an extra counter here. Probably draw another card, potentially. Double checking exactly where we are at in terms of getting to Judgment. We're at least 2 turns away. We have a Fire Spirit. We need to find a Water Spirit to be able to get all 5 in, or, you know, lose our Water Spirit to some kind of destruction and then be able to tuck it back into the item area. So Reflect Gear probably, the pump isn't relevant. The recovery of Reflect could be relevant, but with all this will, it doesn't simply do very much. So drawing an extra card with Recorder of Worlds makes the most sense. Then we go into my turn. Draw. Now we could accelerate here. There is a world where we could Judgment this turn. It would be very difficult. We'd have to be playing the Alchemic's Chance. But that's not what we're playing right now. So we are still a couple of turns off. We need to get Water Spirit and Fire Spirit into the item area. We're going to pitch to dig, hit another Fire Spirit. That's pretty good because Fire Spirit can help us burn the Water Spirit and then tuck that in as well. So we are set up for next turn being able to Judgment very, very easily. Have a ton of will. We see you have the Mirror in hand. 4 will available as well. We also have Sphinx. So at this point in time, you've seen that you've seen the pyramids and the train, because we have Remnants of the Ruins to be able to protect against burn with things like Witch of Quenched Fires, but also Witch of the Fallen Kingdoms. During the after swinging in with Falchion, we're going to go ahead and try to use Alchemic to tuck Fire Spirit and destroy Recorder of Worlds on the turn that, you know, it would have to require a flip of Refrain to be able to protect it. And we potentially have some outs for that. See, we have Mirror. Mirror would be very, very good against the ability of Refrain when it turns into Mover of Worlds. So Launch of Megiddo here is going to come down in response. You think about trying to mirror that, but the better option is to let it flip and then wait for it to burn counters. Like, that's the biggest piece here. So Mover of Worlds is out. We're going to see exactly what is going to happen in response to this alchemic to destroy. It's going to get to resolve, so we just got Mover of Worlds out. I think that also makes a lot of sense here, because now the Reflect won't be able to contract this same turn, but we do have a Memory of Worlds in hand. I think there's a matter of, like, you have so much will that I don't think it's necessarily relevant, but, you know, what Azure has going on could be the piece here. So we're going to burn a couple counters just to try to kill a couple of the spirits here. We're going to respond with a full cost Cursed Mirror to cancel the activate ability, so burn some +1/+1 counters, and lock us both to main phases. Now, the main reason to do this is because when you see the Spirit of Storms, and because, again, it's a green control deck, there's most likely a Prisia, right? There's Prisia involved. And also with Reflect, we don't want to let us somehow some other form of, like, before recovery Mover of Worlds things happen. So we're going to try to force some stuff now, lock us both in main phases, and make that extra will that Azure has less efficient, right? Because a lot of our stuff at this point in time is responsive. The stuff that he has is not going to do much at the end of the turn, and we're in the end phase when this is going on. So once the mirror kind of happens, we're at an advantage here, and if this gets to resolve, then, you know, we kind of get a free couple phases. So the mirror gets to resolve, and then Azure goes, oh yeah, I can't do anything else this turn, so I have to discard to hand size. Now, this is a mistake on my part. I discard to add a 2 +1/+1 counters to Falchion, but I also missed the fact that I also can't do that because of Cursed Mirror. Arguably, it won't matter. Potentially, if it does matter, then that's on me. Just remember, both players are impacted by the Cursed Mirror thing. I would have just had to discard the hand size instead of getting the 2 extra counters onto the Falchion. So all that extra will, we do have to force to go into the main phase, which feels great for me. We do need to find a way to get Water Spirit out there. We can probably play to the end phase. We're going to call Stone with Mover of Worlds. Now it's a matter of what are we going to do against this board state. I have a full grip of cards. Azure has a full grip of cards. Trying to play Electra isn't a smart move here because of the Darkness Spirit. We know that there's a Darkness Spirit in hand that can get cheated in anyway. So it's going to be tricky, right? Trying to clear this board is going to be very tricky. Going for something like a Replicant Shiva would have to be full costed Replicant Shiva, and at that point in time wouldn't kill anything because the spirits would deal 0 damage to themselves, and then the Falchion could just discard a card to give himself Eternal. So not a great position for Azure to be in against these little test tube guys. We might try for it, though, just to tuck the Spirit of Storms back into the deck and get it out of the way. So paying a little bit of extra will here, tucking back the Spirit of Storms to do that Replicant Shiva. In response, we are going to see that Spirit of the Mirage Ruins attempt to make it so that that will get expelled instead. And now, to Azure's credit, does a very nice play here. He goes, now that you've committed the Spirit of the Mirage Ruins, we're going to go ahead and go cast Memory of Worlds targeting our own Shiva, and still for the same amount of will get Mover of Worlds out there and put it in some good work. Now, to Azure's point here, Azure could use Recorder of Worlds to recover Reflect, a Mover of Worlds, could use Reflect to recover Refrain, and have Refrain swing at the Spirit of the Mirage Ruins. It doesn't do a ton, but it would cost me 2 cards to try to save it if I wanted to with the Falchion, which, I mean, is still burning cards out of my hand, but at the same time doesn't really want me discarding cards, because if I have a Water Spirit in hand, right? The other problem is I also haven't used Alchemic this turn, so waiting to use the Recorder of Worlds in response to whatever I do with the Alchemic is also very optional. And this is the thing about Lucie, is, like, she has so many complicated options that she can do, but most of them are like hard once per turns. So you have to be really cautious, which is also why something like Falchion is really great, because it increases almost exponentially the number of actions she can take in a chain. So we're going to see before leaving main phase, we're going to see that Synthetic Spirit get to come down here. Because we're still locked to end phases, right? We're going to grab the other Synthetic Spirit. We're going to pitch that Spirit to attempt to try to dig. Seeing if there's a response. Not a great hand here from Azure with the amount of will he has available, especially now that that Synth Spirit is down. Whiff on both of those. And then we're going to try to use Darkness Spirit to tuck the last one in and try to destroy Mover of Worlds here. That's going to get responded to by the Recorder, which is just fine. And then we're going to say, let's proceed into end phase, if we're good there. Checking number of cards in hand. Azure seeing if he's going to do anything else in main phase here. Oh, and then before draw, oh, we're back to my turn. Before draw, we're going to use Recorder of Worlds to try to destroy the Darkness Spirit and the Fire Spirit. I think that's fine. I do not mind that at all. Draw for turn, so many cards in hand. Draw into the very large Synthetic Spirit, which is probably just going to get discarded, honestly. We know that the Recorder of Worlds is now out of the way, so at this point in time, the only free stuff is like Memory of Worlds and, 3 will worth of actions, but we have all 5, so we can get Lucie flipped up. So again, now we're sitting on 5 will plus a Lucie interaction to be able to try to push through some damage, and really, the only person who needs to swing through with this many cards in hand is Falchion, who can give himself flying and pierce and do all these other things. So we're really well set up for a very pretty aggressive play line here to finish the game off. So attempting to do Judgment, Azure saying, wait 1 second, I'm going to think about that before we let that resolve or not. We have all 5. This is going to mean that my spirits are now being able to swing for an additional 500 damage. So represented on board just from the spirits is 17. And then so, a single discard from Falchion, if all of those get to connect, is lethal. And then we go in, Lucie gets flipped. Lucie is now active and ready to go. Can reanimate spirits. We've got spirits in graveyard to be able to make it helpful. We can get a lot of spirits out of hand very quickly to be able to reanimate 3. And this is what I talk about in the sense of you can very easily get Falchion to be just absolutely gigantic or set you up some very nice combat tricks to be able to push through for lethal. So now that Lucie is out, though, we are going to immediately slam a threat that requires attention like this. There is no way that Azure can allow this to resolve, because if it does, it's just the game. Magic Stone Research Institute, this requires, right now it's giving +8 to everybody, and the likelihood that I get another unique stone is very, very high. So down comes paying 200. We see sort of progression. Thinking about whether or not to try to respond to that, we just go, you know what, that is okay. I think in response, what we're going to do is Lucie's Reanimate effect. So we're going to attempt to tuck one back to reanimate a Synthetic Spirit from the graveyard. Seeing if we can maybe bait some more actions out of Azure here, but also this is to help us get kind of a card back in hand to make up for the one that we just lost, being the Institute. So Synthetic Spirit Darkness is going to come back. It gets to search us. The Synthetic Spirit that we just tucked on the bottom of the deck goes back to our hand. We can then pitch that one to cost to try to dig. Unfortunately, that full whiffs. So we do a little bit of a risk, but at that point in time, we're probably just going to let the sort of progression resolve. That's fine, because we still have all 3 will, and we have Lucie's expel ability left, and now we also have Darkness to be able to destroy a blocker, right? So very good position for us to be in, to be able to play through the extra will that Azure has. If Azure goes to block, then we have a way to kill it without using any will. We're going to start by swinging in for 7. Because the Synthetic Spirit is getting a buff, we have all 5 attributes covered by things in public zones. Attempting to knock Azure down to 10. That's going to get blocked by Reflect. We're not even going to burn the blocker. We're not even going to try to burn the Reflect out of the way. We're just going to say, okay, we'll go in for 5. Take Azure down to 12. if this doesn't result in something getting killed. We can full pay a full costed. The problem here is that, like, you can play a full cost magical rabbit, but it taps you out to do it. And now that Reflect is tapped, like, there is no out at this point in time, because one, the blocker will get destroyed. We're gonna try to draw an extra card using orb, and then at that point in time proceeding to concede. So that, like, at that point in time there would be no out, because the Lucie would be able to cancel or expel anything that was being cast for full cost, and so there's just no way to push through that damage or, like, save yourself from that damage. So Falchion doing some great work there in the early game, early pressure, and then following it up with a nice pretty early Lucie flip. That was turn 5. It's very easy to just have the turn 2 flip Lucie be the turn that you finish it off, especially if you've been able to get any of the kind of, like, what are we building lines out there, you know, just a couple of spirits, an elemental spirit, a falchion, you know, a sphinx, an institute. Like, you can push through damage very, very quickly on a very safe turn as Lucie. So going into game 2 here, as you're taking the coin, extra card, extra will plus mastery feels very good. Again, the biggest issue being that, you know, you need more things like Lorites, as opposed to Sword of Progressions. Like, that's the biggest piece here. Being able to stop cheating in of the elemental spirits is kind of huge. In response to beginning of game trigger, we're going to go ahead and see that launch of Megiddo to just get Refrain out there immediately. Mover of Worlds, we see a stone. Are we potentially going to cheat something in? We say no. This deck uses some void cards, but the ability of this deck to suddenly get other things into the item area at instant speed to make that stone produce colors is pretty solid. So we can pretty easily just afford to say, no, we want these cards in hand. We're going first. We need all 5 of them, and we'll just kind of chill from there. Going into Azure's first turn, we get to see Mover of Worlds, which is very safe, getting to call that first stone. Down comes Change the World. Generating some counters is very nice. Going to attempt to see a cheat in. No Lorite to stop it. We're going to see our Water Spirit get to come into play and gets to search us for a Darkness Spirit. So we get to get that. Once again, we're at the same point where we can change the world off the board very, very quickly. Pitch to dig to test tubes. We hit a Fire Spirit. Again, this is excellent. And then we can use Water Spirits to try to tuck the change the world back into his hand. Now we have blue and white available on that stone. Like you said, or like I said, you can get to having color for that stone very, very quickly. It's not that difficult. Since we're in the early aggression state and we haven't seen a Sword of Progression go off, we're going to try to do some silliness here. We do pitch. We see the other Water Spirit. This is very nice because now we can pitch that later to set it up for being able to Judgment. This means we don't have to worry about getting the Synthetic Spirit for water later. We're going to go ahead and try and go in for a Falchion. There's nothing for it to target, but we saw before how effective that card was in just being able to go in. And it is a bit of a risk, but with no Sword of Progression, it would have to be like double Sword of Progression here. And if that's what it takes to cancel the Falchion, then like that feels great. Memory of Worlds will hit the Falchion. Also great. We get to keep him off of an early double flip. So that is always great. And we can always cast it later if we need to, although most of the time we're probably just gonna let it sit there. We do see that Priscia's Big Show, like we said before, gets to start sculpting. It does need to get to 3 total casts, and once it gets there, it's in a good spot to be able to get that Spirit of Storms, which is very, very nice. We're going to attempt to cheat in before recovery on Azure's turn at this point in time. We're going to then search, or no, this is at the end of my turn, it looks like, before going into Azure's turn. We're going to go ahead and try to cheat in, get the Darkness Spirit. Darkness Spirit gets to then put the Fire Spirit to pop the Reflect. And then the Reflect is then going to get to, or the Refrain is going to get to destroy the Darkness Spirit as well, which is great for me. I don't know if I would have burned the 1 counter to destroy the Darkness one, right away, because now playing the Change the World like feels bad. There has to be a follow-up this turn of we have to be able to pop the Water Spirit, otherwise this Change the World is just going to get us 1 counter. I mean, it costs you 0 will, so maybe it's just fine to have 1 counter a turn, but it's also accelerating my line and being able to discard. So we see that Fire Spirit in full recognizing, grabbing too many cards. We're going to send that other card back to the bottom. Keep that in mind, people. And then in end phase, we're going to use Water Spirit to tuck Water Spirit to get the Change the World back into hand. So 1 counter a turn generation for Azure is at least happening, but the fact that it can't be before recovery is a little bit rough. So pretty handed aggression with regards to getting items or getting spirits to the item area. You see we do have a white spirit in hand, which is great. So that's being able to put the darkness spirit in there, and we have a wind spirit in hand to be able to set that up. So we're certainly setting up for a turn 4 judgment. Like, that's the biggest piece here. Prissy is going to get to come down, getting to spirit number 2, or to cast a big show number 2. Goes to cast Prissy, goes to cast a Sword of Progression. We're going to respond by digging with test tubes, pitch the green spirit to grave, and then so now we're set up again for that double judgment, right? We can get in light spirit. Light spirit can gain the 600 life with the water spirit can bounce the Change the World back to hand, and then light spirit on our turn can put the wind gain a 600 life, or in this situation we could just bounce to Change the World back to hand. Before those are going to come in, just as a kind of playing through this a little bit proper, we're going to use a split Lumia here, Wings of Light and Darkness, to try to remove the Water Spirit from the game. And we say, you know what, that is fine. Those Change the Worlds are going to get to come in. We're going to get to cheat in White Spirit. White Spirit's going to get to be able to gain us some life and still set us up for our next turn judgment, which is great. White Spirit gets to search us here, probably searching us for another Darkness Spirit. Yep, so we have one to be able to cheat in once we get the other one into the item area. Now, don't keep in mind that this is not really necessarily the most aggressive flip turn. I imagine we might not flip quite yet. We don't really have a reason to, but we will be at a position where we could judgment, and that's a big piece here. Going up to 46, we draw for turn. Mainly because we just don't have something like Falchion on field as well. There's that Synth Spirit, or that 4th Stone. Seeing what we got here, we got a pitch to dig. See a Fire Spirit. Looks like we're going to try once again, potentially for that Falchion in hand, though. We're not going to cast the one from the outside the game because we don't want to open ourselves up to a contract. So we'll just cast the one from hand. It's going to attempt to add a counter, potentially in response, while Falchion is still on the chase. And then do launch a Megiddo to get judgment out. And potentially burn the 2 counters to try to cancel the Falchion. And we say that is fine. We're going to respond by attempting to cheat in Synthetic Spirit of Darkness to get another thing to go here. Tuck our last one that we need, the Darkness Spirit, into the item area to destroy the Mover of Worlds. Say like, okay, you've done the cancel, we're going to try to fight over this. Now there's a world where if we're going to fight over this a little bit more, those 2 remaining Muse Spirits, or those 2 remaining mirrors in my hand, could be used to fight over this activate ability. But ultimately, because Azure only has 2 cards left in hand, it's better for us to just say, no, we're just going to accept that the Falchion's going to get killed. And we're going to try to burn the resources out of your hand. So tons of stuff here to be able to play. We know that one of these cards is a Perseus Big Show. It gets cast. The down comes the Mirror to try to stop it. In response, we're going to try to Memory of Worlds our own Big Show so that we can recast it later. And then in response to that is probably when that last Mirror is going to come down. So it's a little bit risky in the sense that we are now fully tapped out, and the only thing we have available to us is Alchemic and the Pitch to Dig, but Azure is completely out of cards. So, and only has, we'll be able to draw an extra card by using 2 orbs, which is fine, but not in a position, you know, especially once we flip. We're in kind of a really, really good position once we flip to be able to start applying pressure. There is the Replicant Shiva, so that could be potentially solarized here. There is no way for me to cheat in, so I could get those 2 spirits off the board and then be bigger. So that's certainly a play that I imagine is probably going to get taken here. We'll gain another 600 life. We can always reanimate those spirits back and at least clear some of the stuff off the board. There really is no risk at this point to just solarize it and get it off the way. Does put you in a position where you're at least not taking the 1,000 damage plus more potentially on crackback. Solarizing the Shiva. We're going to go ahead and gain 600 life thanks to Light Spirit. Those are both going to get destroyed. We get 4 +1/+1 counters, so a nice 10, 11 Replicant Shiva. Can't cheat in. We're going to go ahead and pitch to dig. See another pitch a Fire Spirit to get a Fire Spirit, and there's the Institute. Unfortunately, whiffing on that one. Would have been nice to have seen that. And now we're just probably going to just snap flip. I mean, there's really no reason not to. We're in a position where we'll be able to animate another Spirit. The Spirits can be defended by blocking with Lucie. You know, Azure's only a 1 card. We've got a grip full of stuff. And we'll be able to set ourselves up for a lethal push next turn. So going to try to do the reanimate ability to grab Light Spirit back. Light Spirit then gets to search us the spirit we tucked on the bottom of the deck. We can pitch it to dig. We can then whiff there, Remnants unfortunately, but then we can use Light Spirit to just tuck the one that we grabbed, that we tucked back in to gain another 600 life, go up to 58, and we're setting ourselves up here for being able to do reanimate, triple reanimate, or reanimate, mass reanimate, and cancel and expel an ability from Azure, all while sitting on 4-will and a cheat in off of hand. So like we're very clearly setting up for a next turn lethal. Like that's the whole point. We're going to add a counter and burn both counters to try and draw another card. Move to recovery here. Three cards in hand. Lucie having 1100 defense is very relevant against this Shiva. Plays a third orb, so now we'll be able to, this turn if we wanted, draw, add 2 counters and draw 1 more card. Gonna swing in the Shiva at the Spirit. We're gonna respond by cheating in. Synthetic Spirit's gonna get us a card. Gonna get another White Spirit. Gonna probably pitch that to dig. And then we're just gonna go ahead and accept that the Spirit's gonna die. We're not even gonna try to, oh, did attack the Lucie for some reason. Then we throw the White Spirit underneath it. Do see a Call Stone. Trying to go in for a first boon to try to draw 3. That's probably not going to be something we're willing to let resolve here. Paying for it using the Tri-Stones. We're going to go ahead and tuck 2 back to expel that, leaving Azure with just 1 card in hand to deal with potential mass reanimate that is about to happen here. So it gets expelled. We still have not done Alchemic. So what we can do here is we can tuck this back to try to reanimate the Light Spirit, to buy it back. Now we can't pitch it again. That's a big piece here. We're not going to be able to pitch it again immediately. Oh, maybe we haven't done dig yet this turn, so we'll pitch and dig. Do get to see Synthetic Spirit for water there. We can then tuck 3 back with Lucie to do her mass reanimate strategy, which is reanimating 5 up to 5 with different names from graveyard or item area into the field. So we're just gonna get to grab 3 cards. The 3 Synthetic Spirits that are in the graveyard, reanimate them, and then get to search 3 cards and add a bajillion cards to our hand. So you can see why like Falchion is also just like lethal, right? So the Falchion that we got cast later, unless that card in hand is exactly Memory of Worlds, which feels like probably not, we're in a good position to just push lethal here. Even just the swings in general, given that these 3 guys are going to search me 3 cards, we'll just have them search the 3 that I just put back on the bottom. All of these guys are swinging for a grand total of 500 damage, plus the Lucie, and still also could have flashed in both of those Spirit Resonators as well to have even more damage from them. So we're just going to go in for swinging 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and then another damage there. We go in for the Rogue Spectator. So right now it would take down to 2. Azure's down to 9. We could do the mirror here. We're going to try to pitch to dig in response to the block. So we're going to swing in for 7. See if there's a declaration of a declared block with that. We're going to tuck it back in with Darkness Spirit. That will kill it. We're going to try to dig a little bit more, add 2 counters and remove 1 just to see what we got here. And at that point in time, seeing that it's the 4th Thor, Badger's just going to say, yeah, I'm at 2 life, but we'll just concede. So that is the match. You can see how my take on Lucie was kind of played a little bit maybe differently than Paul's, and finally got Reflect and Refrain on the channel. Let us know what you think about these in the comment sections down below. Good luck on your pre-releases this weekend, and until next time, this is DMO73 saying class dismissed.